Welcome to GTM Confessions, where we share what it takes to be a go-to-market professional today. Because it is freaking hard and it's far from the glamorous picture that social media often paints. Consider this show your weekly go-to-market therapy session. I'm your host, Stephanie Cox. I have more than 20 years of experience and I've done almost everything go-to-market related in my career. In this episode, I chat with Maureen, VP of Marketing at Brillion, about why product marketing should report directly to the CEO, the biggest misconceptions around product launches, how to create messaging that resonates with buyers, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Maureen. Excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm excited to be here.
So maybe before we kind of dive into a long list of topics, what if we start with kind of like, it sounds like a really basic question, but I feel like so many people don't have the same definition. So maybe how would you define go-to-market strategy?
Well, certainly not the way that most people think about it today. To me, go-to-market strategy is the thought you put behind bringing a product to the market. So that's all the market research, that's all the target audience, that is the actual marketing plan that you're going to put together, the distribution channels that you have, that's your plan. I think, today we talk about go-to-market teams, which I think is, I understand what that means, but when I first read this term, I'm like, oh, somebody's hiring an entire team of product marketers to do this? And then I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's a salesperson. Why don't you just call them a salesperson so that the person who's applying for the job knows what the expectations are? I think tech is really good at making up names and then confusing the fuck out of everyone on what these people are supposed to do. Maybe that has something to do with where we are now, but I don't know. I just call people what they're supposed to do so they have an understanding of what's to be expected and people can do their jobs more efficiently without, I saw your post earlier about two things to think about on a startup and are you okay with ambiguity? I think we create a lot of ambiguity because we aren't clear.
That's very true, especially when it comes to messaging, which I know we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But I think your point is really interesting because one of the things that I think is such a misconception about go-to-market strategy is everyone's like, oh, well, it's our sales strategy. And I'm like,
that's right.
No.
Right.
That is like a small portion of it. And they're like, well, the CRO or the VP of sales owns the go-to-market strategy. Also, no. Right? It's so much bigger than that. So when you think about like go-to-market and working cross-functionally, who all do you think has to be involved in the conversation of setting like the go-to-market strategy for the business or for like a new product that you're bringing to market?
Yeah, there's no one answer because it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And I think a lot of companies are just going to execution mode. Like, how are we going to do this? Instead of stepping back and say, what do we need to do? Because introducing a new product is a lot different than, getting people to adopt your product. There's a different focus. There's a different message. There's different people that you have to include in the conversation. There's different kinds of information that you need to pass along to make people feel comfortable to tell other people about it. So unfortunately, there's not a clear answer, but that's why you need somebody in the business who is focused on the business and what's going on with your customers and the market to produce these go-to-market strategies. And go-to-market strategies are how you're bringing product to market or how you're resolving a business problem with a go-to-market strategy.
So is there one person that you think within the business, like kind of, I don't want to say orchestrates that because I hate that word, which is so many companies, I feel like on their messaging on their website are like, I have an orchestration. I'm like, who talks like that? Who do you think, right? Like in real life.
Right.
So who do you think, if you were to say like, there's like one person who should be maybe spearheading the effort, is that a specific functional area in your mind? Like, where does that live?
Yeah, I'm going to say it belongs in product marketing only because it is a role that is cross-functional. It is a role that is required to understand the objectives of product, sales, marketing, customer success. They also need to know about pricing. They also need to know about margins. They need to know about what's happening with customers. They need to know what's happening with the market. Nobody in the organization is equipped, or I'm going to say afforded, the luxury to have oversight of all of this information. The only other person I can think of that should have that information, that may not, but should have that information, is the CEO. And so I think the CEO and the product marketer should be best friends.
It's interesting that you say that, because that's the same way I think about it too, especially if you're like at a smaller organization. Like the CEO in a startup should be the one that's kind of like spearheading the go-to-market strategy and working with product marketing, sales, CX, finance. And then when you get in a larger organization, there typically are, or mid-size, like product managers for specific areas of the business that then are leading that effort. So where would product marketing sit then for you?
Reporting directly to the CEO. I think, when product marketing was first starting out, and let's be clear, product marketing has existed well before technology and SaaS companies, right? Product marketers were born out of product management in CPG companies. Product managers were responsible for putting all of the information about the product into the packaging so that people could use it effectively. Well, the product manager has now it has to focus so much on the product because of all these other things going on, competition, the market, etc. They now need that product manager, or they needed that product marketer to bring the details to internal people. So this is really interesting. As things evolved, the product marketer was a person who brought details internally so that the internal people could share it externally. That happens today still in product marketing and SaaS companies, but we forget that internal step, that internal marketing. We're always like, let's just go external with it. So for me, product marketing is really responsible for understanding the interaction and the interplay of internal and external to bring that message to market. But the evolution of product marketing was to bring the details internally and so people could share it externally. That's great. But what just happened, most recently, software was so cheap to make, everybody was doing it. And this created unbelievable competition. I mean, unnecessary, unbelievable competition. And product marketing had to really focus on market conditions, competition, know what was going on, know what differentiated the product, help the product team bring back information so that they could then make different decisions about the product. If that's not a strategic role that deserves more say in the organization, I don't know what is. And people who are thinking about product marketers in the way of, I just need you to enable the sales team, I just need you to make slides, really are underutilizing and doing a disservice to their company, to their bottom line. So the CEO.
So I love that. Do you see many organizations that are doing that, or do you find that most of them, at least from my experience, they tend to stick product marketing in two areas: product, which I think is a hot mess of a place to do, right? Because like your product organization from a product management standpoint in engineering, they typically are a lot more technical. Like they're not the ones that should be overseeing how you talk about the product.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It's a rare product leader who can understand the market and parlay the benefits to the lay user.
Right. Well, also talk to engineers about how it like technically should function.
That's right.
Right. And so the other place I see them is in marketing, and oftentimes it's almost like one of the last roles hired in marketing as the company grows. Right. Like they start with typically like demand gen people, content, you get like your marketing or rev ops, and it just builds and builds. And it's like, oh, we also need a product marketer. I'm like, shouldn't that be the first hire? Shouldn't that be, if you're going to sit within the marketing organization, not report to the CEO or even if you are going to report to the CEO, is a product marketer a more important hire in a company's initial journey than even a demand gen focused person is?
How are you going to build demand for a product that nobody understands what it is? And I think, sometimes the founder can eloquently state what that is. And maybe in the early stages of a company, the perfect message isn't the right thing, but getting to product market fit is. But once you have product market fit, or as you are going towards product market fit, you have to really coalesce around what is the benefit of your product. That's when you need that product marketer. Putting out, and I'm not trying to demean marketers in any way, but doing the work of marketing is, really thankless, especially when you don't know what the message is. And I hate to see that, right? Because people are just spending money and spinning their wheels. Let's just throw spaghetti at the wall. Yeah, I don't think you can do that anymore, because if you don't have a brand, you're not going to be recognized. If you accidentally create a brand identity that you don't want, pulling that back is going to be very difficult. So product marketing is going to help you do a couple things. Help you figure out what that message is, and then help build the brand from that moment, which is something that in a lot of companies, brand and product marketing are like at two ends of the marketing spectrum, right? No, they should be together. They should be together, and they should be working on, building that brand together.
Why do you think that they are so separate? I mean, like if you had a hypothesis around like what you've seen in your experience, what drives that?
I think the only less understood aspect of a business than product marketing is brand. I don't get it, right? I don't get it. Brand is how you feel. Brand is how you think about a company. Brand is, or the, whether or not you want to associate with a business. Everyone knows Apple. Everyone, there are some great brand taglines out there. And you need to have that. You need to evoke something in your buyer, even if it's just trust. Trust should be the thing that you evoke in your buyer when they're talking to you. It should be the first thing that a customer thinks about when they're opening up your application. And it's not like at the forefront of their mind, but it's the reason why they continue to use your product. So product and brand really, product marketing and brand really need to be together and aligned, because what you say about the product is how your brand is going to be built.
Well, and I think that's sometimes not what people think of when they start thinking about like product marketing and brand. Oftentimes, and I think this is such a maybe basic understanding, they think, well, like product marketing is going to help enable sales. They're going to create sell sheets. They're going to create presentations. They're going to like tell me, they're going to give me some talking points, and then the marketing will go and run like the website copy, and they're going to no, like product marketing and brand and content, like they all should be working harmoniously together, because in a lot of ways, I think the most effective companies have product marketing kind of like at the center of everything that they do. And that's not what I see the most, unfortunately.
That's right. I mean, so at one company, I ran product marketing and content, and that would be my preferred way to build a product marketing team. I mean, if in my utopia, it would be product marketing, brand, and content marketing, and together that team would shape the perception of the company, and help market execute on that vision. And that's not to say that marketing is a pure execution function, not at all. They have expertise in how to distribute the message and where people are at. That's what marketing is helping the company do. But you really need people who understand what the product is and does, can help build a brand around that, or help build the perception around that product, and then talk about that product in terms of either as a practitioner or as helping the field understand how to use this product.
So thinking about, and let's say your perfect utopia, we get kind of like this organization that's product marketing, content, brand, and then you have kind of like, I would say maybe your marketing is more like your demand gen engine, right? How does that first group of product marketing, content, brand then work with the sales team? Like at what point are they responsible for enabling sales? How much should sales be enabled? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, this is a great question. And, over my career, I've really begun to understood that it's not about creating slides and telling the sales team what the story is on the slides, right? But this slide was created to convey this message, and this is how you should speak to the slide, and this is when the slide should come up in conversation. I think buyers are done with slides.
Preach.
Really.
I'm so tired of creating them, and I'm so tired of seeing them.
Yes, buyers want to know, I have these 4 requirements and I have these 2 goals. How are you going to help me do that? Also, we have these parameters within our organization. Do you fit into that? I think that's what buyers are really trying to get to. Slides are a great way to say, in 5 slides, this is what we do. We have the expertise, and this is what you can expect. But beyond that, it's a human conversation about the goals of an organization and how the vendor is going to help achieve the goals. So, but to understand, to do that effectively, salespeople need to know the product, need to know why the product was built, need to know who is using the product and who's buying the product and how to answer the different questions for those audiences. And none of that is in a slide. It's through conversation, and it's asking, okay, well, what are you trying to accomplish, regardless of what the solution looks like? I think that's, buyers need to let go of the solution and sellers need to let go of slides. They just have a conversation. But yeah, I don't know. I really think that just getting to the point of, here's what we do and here's how we can help you is what the sellers need to do. And most importantly, they need to feel confident in the conversation. They need to feel that they can say, that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I'll get back to you. Or they need to say, that's an interesting question. Why are you asking that? Because so many sellers don't feel that they can push back on customers, which is not true. They should be pushing back. They should be getting to that next layer of information, because then that gets to, root cause. And root cause is so boring, but it's the thing that is going to make your solution more valuable in an organization, because you know how to address what the problems are.
So one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that sales should really know the product. At what point do you think sales should be able to demo the product on their own? Should they be certified in your product? Like, where does that line go? Because I think the old way of selling, right, and kind of like where you and I both started from a career perspective, is there was always like a SolCon, a sales engineer that would kind of like run the demo for you. The sales AE was never the person typically doing that. That started to morph a little bit in the last probably 5 years. Some organizations still have those roles, some the AE does it. But then now with like product-led growth and interactive online demos and the ability for software to be created so quickly and to be more user-friendly, and people can try it or see it on their own, like what do you think sales should be doing in those ways to help convey the value of the product from like a demo perspective?
Really understand what the problem is in the organization and focus on that part of the application. It used to be, well, let me just give you a tour of the entire application, because the entire application could do 3 things. And that was done, right? Now the application can do 100 things, and I'm going to show you all of them in a 30-minute demo. And customers are like, I don't know what you just showed me, and I have no questions because I have no idea what just happened to me. And I like the idea of interactive demos, but some products don't lend themselves to it. Or interactive demos are great, but again, not the best way to convey some of the value. Trials are great, but again, depending on the complexity of the industry, not useful. because you're not going to connect all of your other data systems into this trial. So I think this is where the salesperson really needs to take on the consultative approach. And everyone talks about being a consultant, being a trusted advisor. Yeah, that's just code for like, know your shit. So that means you have to know your buyer. Know your buyer. What are they interested in? Ask if you don't know. The consultative sell is asking questions, and then reaffirming what you've heard and say, okay, well, we talked about these three things. Is there a priority in these three things, or one of these things causing you more problems than another? Then you know where to focus your time and your effort on that demo. And then you can have a conversation about it. And then you can show, oh, these are the value points in the application that are really going to solve your problem. And I think that's just a different, it takes more effort to find out what the problem is, but that you can drill down into the application and really get to the point a lot quicker.
Well, one of the things I thought of as you were talking through that is I think the consultative sale, everyone does talk about it. And I think it's one of the reasons, while I am not by any means a trained salesperson, I would never ever claim to be. I have been highly effective selling when I've been the person we're selling to, because I can like intimately relate to their problems. I can tell a story. I can actually come across as being a consultant and helping them understand how like our software solution could solve that problem. So I think sometimes even companies need to think about like what the persona of their sales team should even look like. Yeah. And if it needs to be kind of that career salesperson who's really great at the sales process portion, or if it needs to be someone who actually has been them before and can have those honest conversations. It's why so many people, especially if you're selling into MarTech, like use agencies, because those people are very well equipped to help be like a consultative sale.
Yeah, exactly. A non-tech experience. Years ago, I worked in a pharmaceutical, and there was always this joke about one of the cafeterias. It was called the Barbie and Ken cafeteria, because that's where all the drug reps, I guess, pharmaceutical sales, we called them drug reps 100 years ago, had lunch. And it was a Barbie and Ken, and it was filled with beautiful people. But we got feedback that the doctors actually needed people with substance as opposed to just style. And that doesn't mean that, those two things can't coexist. But for the majority, we were going on flash as opposed to, really being able to communicate the science and the benefit. And so there was a swing the other way where you had to have a scientific background in order to explain the benefits of the product. Tech is not that difficult at all. It just takes an open mind and a willingness to learn it. And once you learn simple concepts, then it's really easy to build on. I just don't think companies take the time to break down the product into very digestible concepts that a person can easily build that or make those connections and then build on. So now I'm thinking like, okay, well, with my product, what are the basic, digestible, crawl, walk, run? How can I help my sellers crawl? Well, they have to understand who in an organization uses this and who is buying it. And those are often two different people. And how do you make everyone happy at the end of the day there? Well, you've got to address both of those things. And then how do you build on that? But I think one of the most difficult parts of a seller's job is explaining analytics. How do you explain analytics to an organization that is going to use it in 100 different ways and a couple of ways that you've never thought about? And how do you explain the value through analytics? Well, you have to ask them what they're going to use it for. And and I don't know why that feels like a taboo question, but it isn't. It's probably the most basic question out there. What are you using this tool for? What are you hoping to achieve with this tool so that can help you understand how to measure your progress? And that is like an adult conversation about software.
But I think that's one of the reasons you said earlier around like some people in sales are so afraid to push back. Part of I think the analytics conversation is oftentimes and it depends on kind of the functional area, they want to measure everything. Why? Because they just want the ability to do it, not because it has like a true business reason. But if you can collect the data on it, I'd like to see it. I may never use it, but I'd like to see it. And I'd like it to be displayed in graph form. Do you have that?
Yeah, that's where, I've been in those conversations and then quickly got out of those.
Right? So thinking about like go-to-market strategy, where do you see the most common failures that companies have when creating their go-to-market strategy?
They don't start with what they want to do or what they want to accomplish. There's no goal and there's no reason. So when you just decide to have a launch, what are you doing? You can't just put a project plan together or worse, who's got the launch checklist?
Also, it's going to be, right? And it's going to be launched at this event. What's going to be launched? Why did we pick this date? Correct. Can you do all the things?
All the things. Yeah. So if you start without a reason, that's exactly what you're going to get. A message without a reason, an event without a reason, and nobody's going to listen. There's a reason people are so excited about a rocket launch. It's a big effing deal, and it has the potential to impact a lot of lives, right? Of course, everyone is hoping that the launch goes out without a hitch, and the rocket goes off into space, and everyone's fine, and now we can catch the damn things, which is pretty cool, and so come back to Earth really, safely. Your product launch has the same disruptive effect to your organization, and you want it to have a disruptive effect in the day of your audience, but you have to understand how to balance those. So I think, without a purpose of the launch, that's mistake number one. But we can talk about the remainder of the mistakes in a bit, I predict.
So one of the things that I think, you and I've both experienced this, even to get like when we've worked together in the past around like, we're going to launch this, it's going to happen, it's going to be great. And then because there's no goal, there's no good reason besides because you see companies struggle with messaging because they don't know what the goal and the purpose is. And then I think there's also, because there's so much software out there that exists today, it's so competitive. Everyone's trying to find a unique way to talk about what they offer. And unfortunately, that comes out with I go to a company's website and I'm like, but what do you do? I don't know what that means. So why are so many companies talking to buyers like they're robots, or I don't even know, they've used a thesaurus for every single other word they could create. Yeah. I'm just do you do chat? What is it you do? If we were having a beer, what would you tell me that you did? Because it's not what's on your homepage.
Yeah, I think, product marketers write something and then it goes through a review process and then it's unrecognizable at the other end. And then everyone's like, okay, great, this is what we're going to say. And I think that's, part of the reason that happens is because product is in marketing, or product marketing is in marketing, or product marketing is in product. And you are beholden to the fears of the leadership to say to the CEO, this is how we should be talking about it. So the product marketer is like, I'm going to write the best sentence I've ever written. It's going to be plain language. It's going to just tell people what we do. And everyone's like, well, where are the $5 words? How is anybody going to know what we do if we don't use a $5 word? I'm like, they want a 2-cent word, a 1-cent word. They just want to know what you're doing. We can't put that on a website because it's not a statement enough.
Yeah, but then people come to your website and they don't know what you do. And then I think we have this situation where we're all in these back channel conversations where I'm reaching out, right? Reaching out to other people going hi, do you use this company? What do they do? I think they do this. And then I get on a sale, especially if there's not demos on your website or actual helpful information. I get on a sales call and I'm like, can you just show me your product? I want to see your product solely because I'm not 100% certain that you do what I think that you do. And I don't want to waste my time. Can you just tell me how much it costs and show me what it does?
Yeah. And so it's really funny because, for years we've been fed this line that buyers have changed the way that they buy. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think our messaging just got really bland and very homogenous, and nobody knows what the hell is going on anymore. And so now they have to go to people who've actually used the product to say, I need to do this. Can this product do it? Yeah, it can do it. Do you like how it does it? Yeah, I love it. It's great. Or no, it really sucks because of these 18 reasons, right? So I don't know that buying has changed as much as messaging has sucked wind for a long time.
Well, and I don't feel like it's getting better. I feel like it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't know what role like AI has on that, but I just feel like
in the world of evolving needs.
Right? I'm like, who talks like that? No one writes words. Like, I don't want to talk to someone like that. I just want to know in like a single sentence. It doesn't even have to be a full sentence what you do.
That's right.
And like maybe in a subheadline, what value you provide. And I want to be able to understand it. I don't want to have to read the rest of your website and still be confused and go to your customer story page and still not understand what you do. Like I want to know. And I think we've missed, and I think this is where like creativity, I think is like a double-edged sword. I think there are ways to be really creative and how you bring that to life. And I think unfortunately sometimes we've chosen to be creative with the words that we use instead of, right, like the actual like visualization of those words.
Yeah. There are only so many ways to say that software is going to help you be more efficient and give you more accurate results or better results. But really, and why are we stuck on this? Because software is a tool to execute your business function. So, getting all fancy and high and mighty about software, I think is kind of a fool's errand. Just talk about the software and the way that it helps your organization or that helps your audience, right? Especially marketers. We talk about MarTech like it is the easiest thing to use. Oh my God, it is not the easiest thing to use. There are at least 150 steps to every one email that you write. Trying to put a web page together, there are mountains of things that you need to do in order to get that done. So, when you say efficiency, what does that mean? I can get you a website up in one day, or I can help you serve content to the right people, to different people at the same time. Oh, great. Well, how do you do that? I can show you what your channel mix is going to look like. I want that tool, right? Like everyone knows who's a marketer. Oh, I need to understand what my channel mix is because I don't want to spend money in places I don't need to. So like, we don't speak that way though. We don't use the language of the industry that we're selling to. We use the language of tech. And I think that's the problem. We need to use our customers' language instead of our own language.
Well, and it's interesting because so many times we'll hear people say, like, talk to your customers, talk to your customers. And I see people in go-to-market functions go do that and then create sales decks, website copy, content that I'm like, I know you talked to them, but did you hear them?
Yeah.
Because they don't talk like this.
Yeah.
So if you come into a company and you're seeing a bunch of like, I love how you call them $5 words that like the average person would not say in a conversation, how do you think about reevaluating messaging? Where do you start?
I listen to a lot of sales calls, and hopefully your company, that you're joining has some kind of call recording software. But typically I like to start there to kind of get a flavor of what the sales process experience is like, because then I'll formulate the questions I'm going to ask my customers differently. I'll do two things there. Like I'll understand what they like about the product, but I'll also ask them about like sales process, if it's still fresh in their mind. And if it's a bad process, it'll probably be fresh in their mind forever. So, when I go in, I'm really understanding what customers are asking about. And if the question is repeated, well, okay, well, we're not answering that question. We're not answering that question anywhere. So that's the question I need to answer. So I start building up, some evidence of what the language needs to be in order to start thinking about how to write it. I also feel like we really have to use plain language, not because of literacy levels, although that comes into play sometimes, but because nobody has time to try to figure out what the hell you meant. And if you're really serious about improving the lives of your target audience, then you should respect them enough to immediately tell them, here's how we can help you, and here's what we do, and here's what we're really good at, and here's why we're different. And I think the why we're different, that's really interesting too, because the why we're different really doesn't come down to a feature. It comes down to a result. And I think we spend a lot of time on the feature and not a lot of time on the result. Well, why we do it this way because we think it is a better result for this whatever. That's what it needs to look at. The differentiator isn't the AI that you use or the analytics dashboard that you have. It's the result. So, I think we forget that user and that buyer a lot.
No, I agree. One of the things that I like to think about with the why we're different is what is that like one thing that customers say that makes what you offer to be exceptional compared to everyone else, right? Like you can not have all the same functionality as your competitors, but you do this one thing that matters more to them better than everyone else. And I think sometimes we, especially with this movement towards like becoming platforms, we forget that like, what is the one thing, not the 25 things, the one thing that you do better than everyone else? Like that's the cornerstone of your product.
Yeah. I worked at a company where I did win-loss interviews. And over the course of a year, we got consistent feedback that the sales process was one of the best sales processes that they had in this space, buying this kind of software. I'm like, we should talk about that more. That is, they wanted to focus on the product differentiator. I'm like, that's too nuanced to talk about. And buyers really care about the sales process as much as they do the product. So that became one of the talking points in the messaging.
I think that's really important because so much of software is becoming commoditized because it is so much easier to spin up. So you can have products that functionally do the same type of thing and that have a very similar price point. And it's those like intangibles that aren't software related, like your sales process, or my big one is like your customer support or your customer success team. I've heard in the past, like you have the best team. You're so responsive. And I think that plays a big role into it when there really may not be huge differences from a functionality perspective between competitive solutions, but what you're going to get after you become a customer or during the process of while you're becoming a customer is so much different.
Agreed.
So I know earlier we talked about product launches and how we should have a goal and not just like pick a random date. How do you think about aligning those with the business goal? Like, is that something that should be part of like strategic annual planning? Because at least a lot of times what I've experienced is it becomes very product driven. And what I mean by that is the product team is going to launch these features and functionalities on this timeline. So those are our product launches. Right. So how do you take a step back and get the whole organization, starting with like the CEO, to believe that this is what are our big strategic goals for the year? How do we align product launches around that and create the type of disruption that I think a great product launch should have in the market?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm trying to figure out which one to start with first. Over the last several years, we've had this move to continuous deployment, which I hate and customers hate. It's the worst way to plan. and it allows developers to say, well, I don't know when that's coming. It's in this sprint, but I don't know, or, whatever. It just removes accountability. I hate to say that because I understand the work of engineering is very difficult, and it's not, I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but Agile has been ripped to shreds in terms of what it actually means. And when you do it the right way, it's very effective. But if you do it in parts, it doesn't work. I mean, it's an entire methodology. So we have this continuous deployment problem. And I feel like product is removed from the business in a lot of ways. And I don't understand where that happened, because if you're not here to sell the product or to further the growth of the product, then what are you doing? So when it comes to, understanding how to think about product launch, I think you really need to focus on the value, the brand, the story, the narrative, who you are benefiting. That's more interesting anyway. Nobody wants to talk about product. Unless your product is a car, nobody wants to talk about it. I think taking the strategic view on it during business planning, what do you need to do for the year? What are the problems in your organization? What is going well in your organization? How do you capitalize on both of those things? Or how do you capitalize on what's going well, and how do you fix what's not going well? And then addressing the immediate needs, like prioritizing that. And then that allows you to think about what you want to focus on for the year in terms of marketing and in terms of bringing that story to the market, which is a completely different way than saying, here's the product calendar, here's what we're going to do. The way that I like to think about putting together a marketing plan is having a theme every quarter. Well, the theme should relate directly to the value that your product drives. And hopefully you've got more than one value prop for your product, and then you can talk about different value every quarter. Now, if you're new, you may not have more than one. But the good news is a lot of people haven't heard about you, so you can talk about your value to everyone for a long time. You're going to get so sick of it, and people will be like, oh, I just heard of you. Yeah, and you're already ready to move on. But you should talk about, let's just use the 4 themes. So every quarter you have a theme. Those themes align to campaigns align to content aligns to the sales process, like what you're trying to do. All of these things should work together. And that means your enablement has to focus not only on the selling aspect, like what are you selling, but what is the story around it, and what is marketing doing so that sellers are aware? What assets can I use? What assets should I be using? What should I be talking about? Who should I be selling to? That's your go-to-market motion. That's thinking about the business in total. That doesn't mean that things aren't going to change mid-year. Of course they will, right? Best laid plans, whatever. So but pivoting shouldn't be something that happens every month. I worked somewhere where we pivoted every month. I'm like, you're now confusing the market. You have to stop doing this. Pick one thing and go with it. We will work through this. We'll figure it out. But if you have to pivot, great. But now you can make decisions on how to pivot, because you have a plan and you see how that plan performed. Hopefully you put metrics on it. You see how that plan performs, so you can then say, okay, here's where we need to pivot. And that's a different way to approach the business, and it's not as reactive. It's a more thoughtful way to approach launch, and then it takes it out of the execution mode. It puts it into that more strategic planning mode.
The other thing I'd add is that I think sometimes people confuse product releases with product launches. They are not the same thing. You can have a product release on a more frequent schedule. That does not mean you need to make it into a launch.
Yes.
He agrees with me.
Yeah.
Your dog agrees.
So, agreed. you can release software all day long, every day, and continuous deployment does. You should tell your customers what's available to them, because that is one way that you are continually increasing the value of their product, of their investment with you. You should always tell customers what's going on. You should do it in such a way that makes sense to them, that adds value to their business processes, and not just a list of features that are great. I got a list of features. I don't know what to do with these. But a launch, I'd like to focus on a story, the brand story, the value of your product, the value to the user, to a business, because that story is interesting, and you can tell it in different ways, and you can tell it for a longer period of time. It's really difficult to tell a story about a feature for 90 days, for 180 days. That's why you get bored. But if you're able to put a story to it, then more people are able to access that story. They're able to retell it, and they're able to put their own spin on it while keeping the essential message the same. And so launches should be decided on, a budget should be defined, a goal should be put, you should have a goal, and you should measure your ability to achieve that goal. And you should plan for it to last at least 90 days. At least 90 days.
So one of the things you just said was around measuring the ability to achieve that goal. What should those goals be for a product launch? I know it can vary, but what have you found to be the most effective ways to help people understand this launch was successful or it wasn't? Here's why. Here's what we need to do different.
Yeah, I think, it's going to depend greatly on what the thing is that you're trying to do. If you're trying to introduce a new product line and you've been a one product company for a long time, and now you're adding a product to it, which seems to be like the biggest problem. It's your freshman album was great. Now your sophomore album is really going to be difficult. What you have to understand, okay, why did you decide to create this new product? What value did it add to your company? And why did your company feel the need to take a risk and create this new product? Well, we realized that now we could increase the value of our product by selling to a new audience, or by that's usually what people are trying to do, is sell to a new audience. But that means you're selling to different people. So you have to think about what it is that you're doing and why you want to do it, and how you're going to engage the user and the buyer. If you are introducing new pricing, well, your audience doesn't care about that. That's an internal thing. But the effort behind new pricing is just as great as introducing a new product. And I think a lot of people don't realize that launch is a business activity, and it's the most expensive business activity you're ever going to do, because it involves the entirety of your organization. And if you're not thinking about launch in that way, you're probably not getting the results that you want out of a launch. And all you're saying is, okay, great. February 21st, we're going to launch this product. Check, done. No, that's day one of selling. And now is where the rubber meets the road, right? Now you're going to see how good your plans are. Now you're going to see how good your messaging is. And if you don't understand how to put metrics on that and how to look at it, like, we all know that the first 10 days, your website traffic should be going through the roof, in quotes. It should increase. Okay, well, you can very easily look 2 to 3 days later and see if your website traffic is increasing. If it's not, what happened? Did you forget to send the email? Did you forget to do the press release? What did you forget to do? Because you should be seeing this result. But when you have milestones defined on the launch, you can easily say, okay, by now we should be here. Let's look at what's going on and make changes if it is not happening, if it's not where we expected it to be. What those changes need to be are determined by what's happening with your sellers. So go to your sales team. Okay, guys, what's happening? Is no one interested? Are you not talking about it? Why aren't you talking about it? Like, asking all those questions. Hopefully the sellers are talking about it, but if they're not talking about it and they're, well, we can't say this, this messaging sucks. Well, that means you didn't do the prep work. to get to this point, and now you've cost your organization time and money. And you yourself as a product marketer, you've eroded your credibility, which is another big aspect of product marketing. If you can't be a credible person in the organization, trusted to bring the right information to sellers and to the executive team, you're shut out of luck. I mean, you should just think about finding a different job. It's going to be very difficult to get that back.
Completely agree. So last question, what is your biggest go-to-market confession?
My biggest go-to-market confession. Oh my God, I don't know that I have one. I think that is a really hard question. What is my biggest go-to-market confession? I think that, as you can see, I'm speechless. I have done a launch that didn't have a purpose, and it didn't go well, and I knew it wouldn't go well. But it was kind of I'm going to have to let you, here's the rope, go out as far as you can and see what happens. Even though I have provided the evidence, I have provided the business strategy, you wanted to do something different, and I'm more than happy to let you do that. And we can see what the result is, because maybe it would work, right? Maybe it would work. Didn't work. It was just a lot of wasted effort.
You've been listening to GTM Confessions. If you love what you've heard, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. And don't forget to tell a friend.